Yeah, I know what you're here for. You're looking for your daily dose of. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we're going to be playing with a very odd version of Red Prison / Moon Stompy. And we are doing that specifically because we are going to be playing with Obosh the Preypiercer. So, the companion condition for this card is pretty tough. Your starting deck only contains cards with odd mana values and land cards. The payoff for this is that you get a 3/5 creature that says if a source you control with an odd mana value, that is basically everything in your deck, would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. So, in terms of deck building here, this means that you don't get to play with some of the normal stuff. The stuff that has a CMC of 0 is counted as even, so instead of something like Chrome Mox, we're forced to play an Elvish Spirit Guide if we still want some additional acceleration. Which is fine if we just need a boost of 1 mana to slam some card that is likely to win us the game. But Ancient Tomb Elvish Spirit Guide does not cast these 2 colorless 1 red cards. And so there is a massive difference between this and Chrome Mox in terms of functionality. So what we want to see today is the payoff of Obosh worth it given the deck building restrictions that it imposes? And the answer is probably no, because people aren't doing this competitively. 3 red is not the easiest for a City of Traders deck, and a lot of times you don't even want to be playing too many 4 CMC cards, so a 5 CMC card is a little rough. And if you're doing this, you probably flood it out or something, or you have a soft lock on the game and you need a finisher. Now, this is kind of, if you squint at it funny, a 6 power creature, so this can kill in about 3 turns, probably less if you have done some other damage at some other point of the game here. This deck list comes from Anubis, who has been messing around with some alternative versions of this deck list. There was like a Haste Stompy deck maybe a week or so ago, depending on when exactly I end up releasing this, that showed some promise. And if we start doubling Screaming Nemesis's damage from 3 to 6, you know, maybe we'll do some cool things. Given how much we've played this general archetype on the channel, I think this is enough that we can go ahead and launch directly into the gameplay here. Notably, our MDFCs get a little bit worse. We don't have Chrome Mox to imprint under them, so Sundering Eruption is existing mostly as the actual spell that is keeping your opponents from blocking or maybe otherwise disrupting some lands from Eldrazi. You maybe don't get to run some of the cooler sideboard cards, like Fiery Confluence might be something that reasonably could be in the Shattering Spree slot, but the cost here is pretty real. With that being said, let's just hop into the matches, folks. If you need some cards, you know where to go. TOAmagic.com is an awesome site. You always get free shipping. Promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit more, and I think I'm getting ready to order a mono black EDH deck from them. I think it's time to have one of those put together. And if you're going to a major event, like say Eternal Weekend, take a look. Big purple banner. They're pretty easy to find. I love selling my cards to them personally. With that being said, let's battle. Oh, we've got a regular old Pokemon battle. My opponent has a Yorion as well. So if my opponent is playing D&T, I have turn 1, nothing, turn 2, like Fable, mid-rangey, nonsense, throw treasure tokens at small creatures. And if they're not playing D&T and it's some sort of mid-range blue deck, then I can maybe just slam a Blood Moon and not literally win the game, but be a somewhat favorite. I might mulligan this hand if I was playing a traditional build. It's fine, it comes out of the gates a little slower than I would like in game 1, but when I don't have access to Chrome Mox, I don't know how aggressively I can mulligan and remain consistent. I wonder if my opponent is having some connectivity issues or something over there. They're moving pretty slowly. Mull to 5, make no legal play on your first turn. That is a decision that you are allowed to make. That's one of my best draws here. I think I'm just going to slam Fable here for the acceleration. Like, sometimes I can just play a Blood Moon here and instantly win the game, but I can probably just do that on turn 2, or maybe just murder my opponent. Alright, good game of Magic we played there. I am going to hit the submit button, given the level of information that I currently have. It is just very difficult for me to parse why my opponent would keep a hand without a land when they are on the play, and then immediately concede after getting a land. I am not interested in this hand. I'm very aggressively mulliganing here. So this is a turn 1 Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which is not, like, super interesting if 2 of these are temporary mana sources. I could keep this getting rid of Fury and just kind of hope that Fable's looting and acceleration allows me to play more Fables. This is sketchy. Basic Plains, Vile. Okay, so it is DNT. That is an interesting draw. Pay 3 life, go in for Fable. Vile will get to tick up, and we'll see what my opponent's got going on. Black Splash, Stoneforge Mystic. This is where I would like to have the Fury, but I do not really have the 100% confirmation that my opponent is playing DNT after that very, very unusual game 1. Alright, so there is a land. I'm probably going to loot through 2 cards here. Vexing Bauble is not what I am looking for. Maybe we can just end up out aggroing my opponent through Cauldra. 17. I'd like to loot through Mountain and Vexing Bauble next turn, and so I play City of Traders? Or do I want to work towards Obosh mana? Let's loot through 2 cards next turn. Make another friend. So my opponent's Vile could do some interesting things here. Right, they are not going on the offensive. So let's transform that. Say yes. Loot through 2 cards. There is a Broadside. That is fantastic. Because the Menace creatures can successfully attack in through Cauldra. No problem. Let's send this in. Go to combat. I could actually probably just send in with everything now. And if Cauldra blocks one of these, I can just throw here. I don't really know that I need to push those 2 more points of damage. I don't need the mana all that much. Yeah, let's just attack with this, with the intention of throwing a treasure. Alright, so because of Menace, this does not actually block. 15. And then at end of turn here, let's throw a treasure at Stoneforge Mystic. I think that's still worth it. It could give my opponent a chance to activate Aether Vial and do something sort of interesting. But that didn't happen here. Recruiter of the Guard. That's cool. That can do some like Skyclave Apparition style stuff that's meaningful. Or Solitude, sure. There is the Solitude. That's fine. And there's more. Oh, it's a Skyclave on top of that. That's quite good. Opponent's still not attacking. So let's get this transformed. I can go ahead and put Obosh into my hand. But the mana is awkward from here, because I can have 5 next turn. The red is a little harder. It's pretty easy to do a post-combat Obosh. A pre-combat Obosh is hard. I think I'm just going to leave everything as it is. The extra points of life are definitely relevant. This is a problem, though. Alright, no attack still. Overlord of the Balemark. Sure. So this returns a non-avatar creature card from graveyard to hand. So my opponent can get back a Solitude, which is slightly annoying. And this is going to slowly start ticking down. It'll just get Yorion blinked eventually. With Yorion coming in next turn, my opponent having Solitude, I don't really know that I have a meaningful path to victory unless my opponent just absolutely trips all over themselves. Let's start here. I think I'm passing the turn, making an extra token at my opponent's end step, and trying to set up something bigger for later. I'm going to keep Vexing Bauble here, so that I at least have the option to counter a Solitude, like give my opponent chances to mess up. But this is incredibly bad. Alright, so there's the Yorion. Looks like my opponent is just going to pass with Solitude available. which is inconvenient for me. If they're going to leave up vialing that in, I probably just crack Vexing Bauble. Screaming Nemesis in multiples is interesting. Okay. So yeah. Okay. My opponent is probably going to Solitude Reflection of Kiki Jiki in response, in which case I will make another token here. So Screaming Nemesis has some flavor text here that might be relevant. When it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. So even though my opponent has a lifelinker available, I might be shutting off the functionality of that card. We'll see what my opponent does. I have some triggers. Okay, we are doing some trades. I think my opponent just wants to let the Screaming Nemesis through. But that's not the world that we're living in. So I now get to deal damage to something. I believe that I'm just going to choose my opponent's face so that they can never gain life. Because if I win this game, I'm winning this game by getting my ass over the line, barely. The next turn I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Obosh and Screaming Nemesis and just send in the crew. I don't think I need to play anything else right now. Now, there's still a lot of bad stuff that's going to happen here. So the Solitude goes to graveyard. My opponent can get that creature back by blinking the Overlord. That Wasteland is actually quite inconvenient, although my opponent might be using it for mana. So I will get hit for 5. That's fine. All right, so there's Yorion. Yorion blinks 3 things. They're going to come back. We're going to have a couple of triggers, and this is no longer impending. This is just a 5/5 creature now. Finding a Solitude. Getting back a Flicker Wisp. Well, things aren't getting better. So let's give my opponent opportunities to make mistakes here. Like with a Solitude and a Flicker Wisp, I absolutely have no business being in this game still. So I'm going to give my opponent a chance to mess up Screaming Nemesis math and blow this game. All right. All right, so I lost the Screaming Nemesis. I'm at 12. This doesn't fly or anything. Guess I'm not technically dead. Let's chill for a turn, give my opponent more opportunities to make mistakes. So this is 14 damage. My opponent now just has like active vial. This gets to bring back a new creature. It's another Solitude. We will, I think, just do this to stay alive. I'm going to take 9. That is a Flicker Wisp. Just blinking the Overlord. Getting back a Skyclave. I'm not really sure why I didn't get Wastelanded. It doesn't matter this time. But I don't think you need that mana anymore. Like, the game is just over in your favor next turn, and you have a Vial on 5. Do I lose access to Obosh if I board in Dead Gone? Those rules about mana values have changed a couple times over the years. Vexing Bauble for Solitude, Blood Moon for shutting off black sources. I'm thinking about boarding out one of those things right now. I wish I had more Furies, honestly. I'm going to go Blood Moons out, or Shattering Sprees, and Dead Gones. Yeah, I do lose access to that. So this should probably just be 2 more copies of Fury, and you just give up the fact that you're not great at answering a Merit Lage. This turn 1 Vexing Bauble, which is medium, followed by a pretty decent string of threats. This is okay. I am like very much noticing the absence of Chrome Mox, though. Not having 8 ways to accelerate out a 3-drop meaningfully on turn 1 is a really, really big deal. So I think we're going to feel that a lot over the course of this league. All right, fantastic. No Vial this time. Vial really helps my opponent keep up with the explosiveness of my deck. And while I would love to just jam Haste Creatures forever, I think it is just correct to start on Fable of the Mirrorbreaker to make it less bad if I get Wastelanded. Next land drop. And passing. So I'm going to say yes. At this point, I don't really want Shatterskull Smashing. The rest of these cards are fine, with maybe Goblin Rabblemaster being the worst of them. But I will probably just keep all of these cards. Opponent could have a Swords, they could have an Orcish Bowmasters. I'm going to play Goblin Rabblemaster now, because I think the rest of these are better later, and I think Goblin Rabblemaster is only good right now. Occasionally, with some large lifelinkers or something, this can become a little bit awkward. It seems like my opponent does not have initial removal. That should have happened already if they do. It could still be Bowmasters. It is a Felia, which is fine. All right, just absorbing 1 damage. That's okay. I don't think I need to crack this treasure immediately or anything. I don't think I need to play a land. I'll just pass the turn here. Caracas Felia is a thing. All right, so opponent's going to attack and blink my token. That's fine. That's good value. I'm just going to let Felia go through. Like, I value token producers when I have access to Broadside. Recruiter is fine. Now, notably, Caracas is currently tapped. Oh, man, my opponent got Solitude. I have a Vexing Bauble in play. Just gonna throw that out there. Ooh. So, we Broadside. I'm gonna go to combat. Make a token. We're gonna send in with everybody. Get big. Okay, opponent's just gonna save some life here. That's fine. Going to 14. Now we're gonna go ahead and do some Broadside throwing. I might need this treasure next turn to play a 3-drop and also activate Reflection of Kiki Jiki, so I think I just throw a Goblin token at Felia here. So opponent's in a very, very bad spot. Free War Formal Wear. That's not a bad pickup. Recruiter of the Guard. Sure. Getting a Witch Enchanter. First Mirror. Sure. Do I care if Rabblemaster dies? Is my opponent just dead if I do 3 Rabblemasters? Without thinking about it, it feels like the answer to that question is yes. I'm not going to do the math. Let's produce a Rabblemaster. Let's make a copy of Rabblemaster. Let's go to combat. Make 3 friends. Send in with everyone. These get very large. I don't think my opponent has Swords to Plowshares. And we win easily. I suspect that my opponent just played this game wrong. Like, getting Solitude in the face of Vexing Bauble and then forcing yourself to get Witch Enchanter so that you can either blow up Vexing Bauble or have access to the 5th mana was almost certainly a wrong line. It's also possible that my opponent was not supposed to attack with Felia and blink the token, but was supposed to block. I think it was a Goblin Rabblemaster that I attacked with. I think you can like block and trade with that Goblin Rabblemaster to buy time if you're going to do this like pre-war Formal Wear Recruiter of the Guard stuff. And if I don't have this Goblin Rabblemaster in play, I have a little bit more mana, but then I don't make 3 Goblin Rabblemasters and just steal that win. Hard for me to say exactly without knowing the full contents of my opponent's hand, but I suspect between the really weird game 1 keep and the way that that game played out that I could have lost to a more savvy opponent. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is, in my opinion, the best Magic the Gathering website for hosting your deck lists online. One of my favorite features is that you can create your own custom tags for when you're deck building. So let's say you're building a commander deck and you want to know, hey, how many copy effects do I have? You can just create a tag and sort everything, and there's fun little hotkeys so that you can do this more quickly. So really, please consider checking them out if you are looking to tinker with deck lists online. So I'm disliking the fact that without Chrome Mox, I am incentivized to keep these hands that kind of do okay things over 2 to 3 turns rather than being able to mulligan aggressively for things that come out of the gates much faster. Like, this deck is playing out in a much more mid-range capacity than I would like. I'm not really sure that this is a mulligan. Like, Vexing Bauble is a relevant card. These are both going to resolve. My opponent needs to have spot removal for them. Vexing Bauble technically has some text versus some combo decks. But given how fast the format is, I feel like my deck construction is artificially slowing me down. Like, there's worlds where my opponent just Entombs, Reanimates, or Dark Ritual Doomsdays, and I'm just fully out of this game before I do anything cool with a Fable. Well, alright. I play Broadside, I attack for 2, opponent's at 18. I attack for 2 again next turn, they are at 16. I throw Fury for 7 points of damage, they are at 9. I could try to go hyper aggro here and set up a situation where I try to shut off Reanimate, but we potentially already dodged the window where my opponent just entombs immediately. I think accordingly, I am just going to play Fable of the Mirror Breaker. This could eat a hardcast days here. Nope. End of turn Bowmasters? Okay, yeah. That makes my looting much worse, obviously. I have a Fury. I can clear that if I need to. Another land. We're attacking. That's indicative of another Bowmaster. I'm not going to block. I like the mana production from this card. Oh, it's indicative of... What the fuck is this art? All right. I'm not going to lie to you. I hate this color scheme. My opponent returned the Bowmasters? Hold up, they returned the Bowmasters to hand when I'm about to Fable loot? Wild. Okay, I mean, I'll take it. Quite happy with that. Elvish Spirit Guide. Okay, so I want to deal 4 damage to this Planeswalker. That probably means playing Broadside here. So let's attack and kill the Planeswalker. Make a treasure token. Planeswalker's dead. I still have 5 mana to hardcast Fury next turn, or I can crack my own Vexing Bauble. I think I'm okay just junking that. There are still timelines where that becomes a 2/2 that relevantly blocks this when I have something that can copy stuff coming. Ponder. It just looks like mustard. Like the purple skull's in the background. I am there for that, but I don't know. Wasteland's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. Psychic Frog. Got it. That makes things a little more awkward. I think I still need the Vexing Bauble. I am kind of interested in Fury being pitch cast here, but I still think I would like to resolve other cards. All right. This is actually pretty good. So let's play this as a land. Let's cast a Broadside. That's going to resolve. We're going to go ahead and go to combat here. This goes in, this goes in. This one's a little weirder. I think I like making the extra treasure here. And if my opponent just blocks this with Psychic Frog, sometimes I just blast Psychic Frog down with fair damage. Ooh. Opponent just took all of that. So I can deal 7 plus some additional damage if I'm willing to junk Vexing Bauble. Is it fine that this is mana versus treasure token? I think it's fine that this is mana. Let's draw a card with this Vexing Bauble here, take that out of play, then I can do cool stuff with Fury. So I think I now am into Fury pitching this. This is not dazable. Okay. So Evoke on bottom, 4 damage to Psychic Frog on top. Opponent now needs to act if they want to save Psychic Frog. And they're going to have to funnel a couple of cards into this. 2, 1 more. All right. So now this lives through Psychic Frog. We're going to let this trigger resolve. I'm going to use my Broadside on the right to throw Fury at my opponent's face for 7 points of damage. Broadside on the right throws Fury at face, and we can let that trigger resolve. Broadside on the left is now going to throw a 3-drop at Psychic Frog to 100% finish that off. I think it's the reflection of Kiki Jiki. I think I just keep 2 broadsides. The Menace is really good, and I don't get caught up in any other sorts of single target removal spell blowouts with things like Fatal Push. And I'm pretty good at controlling the board versus something like a Orcish Bowmasters that I know can be coming as of next turn. All right, cool. That game could have definitely gone worse for me. We got lucky in some capacities. I am into things that kill Psychic Frog. That card is a problem. Seeing Bowmasters in game 1, my opponent is probably not Reanimator. They are probably a tempo version of the deck list. That means that Ghost Vacuum is reasonable, but not necessarily optimal. It can still do some things in potentially stopping things like Murktide Regent. It can potentially stop Psychic Frog from flying. Like, there are occasionally other graveyard-oriented synergies here. I think I'm just going to go with the blasts. It kind of looks like playing a Moon and eliminating 1 creature is one of my easiest ways to victory given this specific build. I could see Goblin Rabblemaster forcing all of my stuff to attack being awkward. I might be a little threat light without that, but I do guess I still have the Oboshes. I could also just, like, not Blood Moon when I am on the draw, and it is just objectively slower. I don't think so. My first offensive play is on turn 3. I just don't think that is in any capacity acceptable. This is fine. It's kind of all in on a Blood Moon working. There's a very good chance that it works. I think since Blood Moon is harder to disrupt than Magus of the Moon, I am going to err on the side of keeping 2 Blood Moons here. Like, if I win this game, I win this game because of lock pieces. So this is what I am in for. However, if my opponent can just basic island, basic swamp in the first 2 turns before I drop this Blood Moon, welcome back, Magus of the Moon. Then this hand does not actually do a lot. Daze is secretly great for me. I think I let that Daze resolve and just try to win the game with a Blood Moon next turn. Even though I can pay for it here. I think if my Blood Moon is going to do something, I need them not to fetch a basic swamp. Fuck. Double fuck. Now I lose access to Spirit Guide. Whatever, Soul Land off the top. Oh, that's surprising. So, my opponent did not take Spirit Guide, and that was either a mistake or they just have a Force of Will here. So which is it? Is a Blood Moon bait anyway for the Fable resolving later? Like, am I actually just winning this game with Fable? That might be the case. Let's try to jam this here. All right, it does resolve. It feels so weird to take that and not a Spirit Guide if you don't plan on answering the Moon effect. So this is a good news, bad news spot. The good news is my opponent's fetch lands are off. My opponent's selection gets worse. It is hard for them to play more than 1 spell in a turn cycle. The bad news is they could theoretically just dump 5 cards into this Psychic Frog and probably pretty easily win the game with it. We'll see where this goes, but I'm not super hopeful. So that's not a valid fetch land right now. I am not interested. Well, I mean, no, I don't think I'm interested. I think I'm just looking for one of my blast effects. Fuck. That's so good. So much for the it's hard for them to cast more than 1 spell in a turn cycle thing. All right. I don't think I'm winning versus Frog unless I loot through these. So I'm just going to eat it to Bowmasters here. This is not great. So I'll lose my token. And the current plan is work towards copying Reflection of Kiki-Jiki with the other Reflection of Kiki-Jiki and try to do some weird alpha strike that kills my opponent. But I'm taking so much damage here. Okay, yeah, there is Murktide Region in the deck list. More Frog. Okay, I think I am willing to concede here and move to the next game. So I could go down all the Blood Moon effects. My opponent does care about blue-blue. They do care about blue-black. They probably don't have trolls to easily fix through it. This is a way to shove an early win attempt in a meaningful way. But fuck, I miss Chrome Mox so goddamn much. I don't really know how to approach this without Chrome Mox. Like, it's such a big deal. Because I could just as easily junk these, do this, do this, do this, trim 1 Spirit Guide. The Dead Cons are not super impressive, though. I'm not, like, the most excited to be playing those. I lose access to the Obosh. I'm so much worse at jamming my 3-drops on turn 1. I don't know. Let's try to steal some free ones. So this is turn 1 Fable, turn 2 Cursed Mirror on a token. Maybe do something better than that. This is unexciting, but fine. I think we're dead to Force of Will, though. Oh, I hate how long this has been on the stack. Alright, it's Force of Negation. Yeah, I think that wins the game instantly. I don't have a great follow-up here. The intention was to loot through the clunkiness of my hand. Now, I can just rip any relevant 3-drop and be okay here. Like, if I rip a Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon effect and I just get to jam it directly into that, that is quite good for me. Or that can happen. So we start painfully working towards something else here. So a lot of my cards are going to get worse over time, and I think my opponent's cards are going to get better over time, with the exception of some stuff like Daze. But if I'm trying to play a 5-drop, Daze is going to stay live as the game goes on, unfortunately. Basic Island was found, and a shuffle off that Ponder deck, please. All right. I think I am just playing this as a land here, despite the fact that I do have other lands. I would like to play this City of Traders relatively late in the game, given how many lands that I do have. And I don't really know that trying to blow up my opponent's lands is going to be the most reliable path to victory here. Broadside, but it's broadside with no additional fun stuff. I can just play Obosh directly into Daze. I don't think that feels good. I don't really think playing broadside immediately is all that good either. Like, if it attacks directly into a Bowmaster's, that's not the best for me. So I just think that either way that I play my turn is bad. So I think I'm going to play the one that has higher upside. I think Obosh has higher upside if it resolves. This is a big card. It's a little bit sticky, and this potentially will let me double spell next turn. All right. Not Bowmasters. What is this? Dismember. Sure. So that is quite inconvenient. So we're afraid of like a Murktide Regent-sized card here. Wasteland is not actually all that bad. What am I doing with Sundering Eruption? I think I'm probably playing that as an ETB tapped land. I think I want to hold Red Elemental Blast up. Yep. Is this indicative of Fatal Push then? It is. I am going to go ahead and just play this as a land still. We'll pass the turn with an answer for Frog or Murktide available. I probably don't just fire off. What is this? That card. It must die. We then need to put other cards in the graveyard over it. Screaming Nemesis. I don't think I play City of Traders yet. I don't think there's a strong reason to. We get in for 3. So we are in a top deck war now where my opponent's deck has cantrips and mine does not. So I believe that my opponent usually comes out ahead from this position. Are my Rabbles in the board? My Rabbles are in the board. My average top deck is slightly less aggressive. I also do have some things like a green Spirit Guide that I could draw that would be pretty bad at this stage. Fetch land. Okay, so my moon effects get much, much worse here. I attack first and send in this damage. Wasteland is fine. Seems like my opponent has another Fatal Push. Okay. So now I will Vexing Bauble. I'll immediately crack that. I didn't do this pre-combat because I was afraid of the extra draw being enough to make an Orcish Bowmasters be very, very bad for me. So at this stage, we knock our opponent off of a large Murktide Regent, which is nice. The Magus of the Moon is not necessarily the most secure win condition, though. Like, if my opponent finds Orcish Bowmasters, it can just block this. Okay, which land do I care more about? The black one casts Bowmasters and removal. The blue one cantrips. The blue one casts Psychic Frog, Murktide Regent. I think it's the blue one. So let's take out that island. No follow-up land. My Magus of the Moon cannot block this turn. And my opponent concedes. Despite everything, we haven't lost a match yet. Okay. The hand's a keep. We've got some thinking to do. I can try to just win the game on turn 1 on the play by slamming a Blood Moon, but I won't have a follow-up play. So I think I like turn 1 Fable of the Mirrorbreaker better, even though I have not an instant chance of winning the game, but a decent chance of winning the game if I just stick a Blood Moon immediately. Well, fuck my Blood Moons. We're playing against a Ruby Storm deck, and then Blood Moon, Magus that are here are just like not going to be super effective. I will loot through at least 2 of these effects. Now, is there merit in shutting off Ancient Tomb for both me and my opponent? Probably not, but maybe? Hit for 5 this turn, opponent's at 13. Yeah, I think I just hit as hard as possible and then try to kill my opponent with a broadside fling next turn. So 5. And I think we just need to get lucky and live through this turn. The Ancient Tomb dealing damage to my opponent is definitely relevant. That fetch land is also relevant. Let's see if we're dead. Not a good start. So it's ritual time. Burning Wish or Past in Flames. All right. So that was actual factual wish. So my opponent can cast something from outside the game this turn. There's the Past in Flames. There's Rite of Flame. There's a ritual. I'm just like dead to Tendrils if my opponent wished for that. So I'm going to skip over any mana production here and just try to narrate relevant things. I believe that Burning Wish just probably kills me. So I think I'm just going to skip ahead to when that's on the stack. Fiery Confluence, yeah, that's going to kill me. Just copied Fiery Confluence a couple of times. Yeah, opponent not even bothering to do additional things here. They've just got it. So this is Fiery Confluence face and then copy it a couple of times. We got turned 2'd when we could turn 3 our opponent. So our opponent's at 10. We attack for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we get to fling for 5. So my opponent ended up half a turn cycle faster than us. Shattering Spree's okay. The Graveyard Hate is pretty mid. It can like do some things versus Past in Flames specifically, but there's just plenty of other ways to win, a lot of which involve things from exile. My Blood Moons are pretty darn bad. Again, they can slow down things with Ancient Tomb, but that's not really where I want to be. So I probably play a couple of things to just replace the Blood Moons. Overall, this does not feel great. So I think I basically always need a turn 1 threat in order to be competitive here. I just think my opponent goldfishes too quickly if I'm not interacting with them, and I'm not really interacting with them. How does this math out? So, turn 1, Screaming Nemesis. Turn 2, Broadside. Don't have anything to throw immediately, but it's just 5 haste damage coming in. Vexing Bauble is pretty low as far as the priority list goes. I think this is worth keeping. I think I'll keep the Vexing Bauble because I can throw it with Broadside, not because I intend on using it for other purposes. Opponent is on 6. Yeah. My opponent being a red combo deck, so the Blood Moons don't interact with them, while also being a deck that doesn't really care about Vexing Bauble, puts me in a really awkward spot. So I can just die when they untap again. Send it. Opponent is at 10. I do kill them next turn. Attack for 5, fling, Screaming Nemesis. So one of us is dead. Is it me or you? Glimpse the Impossible. Sure. So my opponent can make some spawns. Got it. Alright, so that probably gets them through the turn cycle then. Let's see if I can change that. So let's loot with Vexing Bauble. Draw a card. Spirit Guide is not what I'm looking for. Oh, but Sundering Eruption is fine, right? For the not block clause. Okay. So that actually saves my butt. So now those can't block. Alright, cool. Good interactive magic going on here. Yeah, I think I'm whacking submit. I don't really get much better here. Okay, so this hand does not do anything on turn 1, and therefore is just a mulligan. This hand does not do anything on turn 1, and is therefore a mulligan. This hand does something on turn 1. So I can turn 1 a Goblin Rabblemaster. I'm on 5 cards. Let's get rid of Magus of the Moon. So it's always 1, 2, 3. I think I always keep the bonus land, and it's just a question of do I want Broadside or Fury? I think I want Broadside. Okay, no Soul Land is nice, but my opponent can still just play a Ritual into a, Uzi, what's it? Ooh, it's Ral Monsoon Mage instead, so I'm slightly punished for throwing back Fury. So I need to throw something that is reasonable sized to get rid of this. Am I throwing Screaming Nemesis next turn? Yeah. So I think I play Screaming Nemesis this turn, attack for 3. I'm going to deal an exceptional amount of damage to myself here. And let's see if we're dead. This is not great. Opponent won the flip, but is going to keep Ral in play for now. The cost reduction is really, really important. That's probably not good. Inspired Tinkering. So that makes some treasures and exiles some cards. Sure. That's pretty good here. There's some more mana and one redraw. Opponent does not have many cards in hand, but there's a few effective cards in exile. Alright, finally, some RAL losses. This does ping my opponent for 1 when they lose the flips. That's bad. So now Desperate Ritual. Ooh, we have transformed RAL to the other side. So opponent exiles the top 8 cards here. And I am going to imagine that this with bonus round just ends up killing me somehow. I think I'm going to go ahead and skip to my death. Like with 8 cards here, I think it's just so incredibly likely that I am dead, especially with the storm count where it is at now. Yeah, my opponent played another RAL and now has sent a whole bunch of other cards there. I think this is the appropriate point to just toss in the towel. GG's. All right, so we're in the same position where, because I don't have Chrome Mox in my deck, I'm incentivized to keep hands that look like this. So we're gonna hope that a turn 2 Blood Moon does some work here. If it doesn't, we're kind of leaning on a Goblin. Fuck me! God damn it! Why? Why do you like basic mountains? Why do you like them? Tell me. Inquiring minds need to know. This is bad. So, like, because my opponent was a basic mountain deck, I essentially got Thoughtseized 3 times for free. And Vexing Bauble also probably does not matter. This is just absolutely fucking devastating. I am going to cycle this immediately. I need another something here. Damn it. All right. Play a Magus of the Moon. Go to Punchies. I believe that I am willing to offer up this trade, as incredibly awkward as this is. Yeah, that's what I thought. Small misplay from my opponent. They did not Ghost Vacuum away my Vexing Bauble. Actually, I take that back. So in a normal matchup, you should absolutely do that because Pyroglyph matters, but I have revealed Obosh, which I guess shows that I'm not playing Pyroglyph. So I take it back. If my opponent attacks with Goblin Shaman token, I will be blocking with Magus of the Moon. I do not want my opponent to have this mana production, and I can just redeploy a new Moon effect. So if my opponent plays something like an Urza Saga, I give them an opportunity to do that where they think it's safe. Damn. What is 6 mana? What a blowout. Not that they couldn't have just pitchcast that card and cleared my board anyway. Like, a pitchcast Fury still just wipes me out. This is awful. My opponent is 1 turn away from just copy Fury repeatedly with Fable. Yep. No, we opened on a reasonable hand versus a blue deck, and we got met with Basic Mountain, double Soul Land. Super frustrating. Sure, that's fine. So I need a live draw next turn. Just absolutely has to be next turn, or I am just fully dead to this combination. That's fine. Now counter spells are on for the things that I can top deck. Rabblemaster is not it. These moon effects are not it. Elvish Spirit Guide, you guessed it, also not it. I am fully comfortable conceding here. I'm never beating this lock backed up by 4 other cards in hand. All right. Life's terrible. My Blood Moons are pretty bad. I could keep some number of them to check Urza Saga. My Vexing Baubles are not particularly strong. I'm probably going to get rid of those. Shattering Spree, Ghost Vacuum, have text. Probably do that. And I can decide how cheeky I want to be. I think a Blood Moon is better than a Red Elemental Blast that is off for the majority of the game. I am not sure if I'm interested in Dead Gone. It does break Obosh, and it's not necessarily going to kill everything. The bouncing is very expensive. I don't think I'm into it on the play, and I might play it on the draw. This is fine. I believe that I am leading on turn 1 Fable. Then turn 2 and beyond are very uncertain right now. I conceptually would like to play Magus of the Moon so that I can play a land after City of Traders, but playing this to ping something like a Goblin that's played out on turn 1 could be relevant instead. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Matchup feels like it's going to be bad, though. Okay. So I'm going to say yes here. I'm going to say Blood Moon goes and 1 Mountain goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana this turn. Do I do this in a way where I broadside? So it would be 1, 2, 3, broadside, attack, lose city, play Spirit Guide, Magus. I don't think I'm into losing this land. The illusion of choice. So let's go Magus of the Moon in a way that allows me to make another land drop here. And then I have broadside as of next turn. Again, though, my opponent is a mono red deck. This Magus is not doing a ton. And I might even be getting rid of it. Like, I can just throw this Magus at Painter to eliminate a potential problem. I think I am into that. Send in. Yeah, the block's free. And let's take out this card. And then next turn, I can play Goblin Rabblemaster. If I draw a land, I can also copy it. The literal next words out of my mouth were going to be, I'm so dead to a Fury, though. And it did happen. So life's bad. That's not great. That's not great. So in case you're not familiar with this, my opponent on their turn can spend 3 mana, activate Grindstone, target me, activate Goblin Welder, turn Grindstone into Painter, and I am deterministically dead to that, unfortunately. I don't have an Emrakul in my deck. Alright. So, I can attempt a turn 1 Blood Moon win. I can play a Vexing Bauble on turn 1, and then attempt a Blood Moon on turn 2 that's protected. I normally do not keep hands that look like this, because one of my mantras is a lock piece with no follow-up is a mulligan. But when we don't have Chrome Mox to smooth out the opening hands and make it more consistent that we can play the 3-drops on turn 1 or play multiple 3-drops repeatedly, that math changes a lot. So at what point do I just completely YOLO a game on a turn 1 on the play risk? I don't know. I think I am willing to force of will check my opponent here. I don't have a lot of faith in this build, and so I think I am willing to take a risk that I normally would not be comfortable taking. My opponent has mulligan to 5. So let's see what happens here. Oh, it's in play. Basic Mountain. Fucking Basic Mountain me. That's not Basic Mountain. Ooh. So Vexing Bauble is going to be very good here. This is going to shut off future artifact mana from my opponent. We are probably playing against some sort of like Echo of Eon's Storm deck. Artifact mana being off while Blood Moon is off is a really potent combination, and my opponent may or may not actually have any answers to some of this stuff. Okay, yeah, so there is an Echo. I'm passing the turn here. Now, red is one of my opponent's colors, so they can cast some spells. Casting the Echo is super awkward for them, though, because it also refuels my hand when I am just obviously stuck. Alright, so our opponent is just building Storm here before they cast an Echo. They can leave some blue floating. Alright, so they leave 1 blue floating. My hand is still mana light, unfortunately. I don't really have much for this, do I? Yeah. We're like very clearly geared towards Reanimator. Well, I'm glad they conceded because my head was shit. We do still have to win another game, though. My Fairy Macabres and Ghost Vacuums can be relevant versus, say, a Beseech the Mirror line or a Gaia's Will line. If my opponent has those, I'm not the most excited about these. And similarly, Red Elemental Blast is not exactly the most fantastic thing in the world. These are kind of my options. I don't really need Fury. The Blood Moon effect on the draw is a little rough. My deck on the draw is a little rough. I definitely want the Blood Moon effects on the play. But Blood Moon's on the draw, question mark. Cursed Mirror is slow. That can probably go. I don't know, the Blood Moon still might be a viable part of the plan. And I just cut something like Fable, where the game just doesn't go long enough that I need this. Broadside could also go here, and I keep this as glue for the deck. Broadside can clock quickly. Rabblemaster is a singular card that I can play out and not have to worry about anything else ever. You could also make a very small argument that Shattering Spree is playable here. It just doesn't feel good. So Fairy is my only piece of turn 0 interaction, but it's not something that is probably relevant. And I do not have a turn 1 play of my own. I think I'm just going to mulligan this hand. This has a turn 1 play. That means that this is definitely a keep, and this Spirit Guide can go back. And hopefully my opponent just goes all in on an Echo in a way that I can disrupt with a Red Elemental Blast and we steal a win. Like, that would be pretty cool. It looks like there's a decent chance of that happening here. Like, I can taste it. The cheesed win. Rainstorm under there. Opal. 3 mana. LED. Echo. Junk that. Pitching Spirit Guide. We're still in it. Sundering Eruption can just be an ETB tapped land here. No, I'll do Basic Mountain. Alright, we're chilling. So we're going to play Rabblemaster this turn to get that going, follow it up with Screaming Nemesis next turn. And hopefully this is just the game. You know, there are some perfects that exist where my opponent can just like brainstorm into another LED plus Echo and go wild here. Like, there is some real concern of that happening. There's a fetch. And a Burning Wish. Getting Beseech the Mirror. Fairy's a good draw to help out with that. So I just Sundering Eruption Badlands? That seems fine. No basic. Don't need this extra mana basically ever. I'm going to hold this as a spell. Make my friend. Attack with my friends. Make my friend bigger. 6 damage coming in. Ooh, bonus Mox Opal. So this is a Beseech the Mirror. We have a fairy that we can mess with my opponent's graveyard if they cast a Gaia's Will. It is another Beseech the Mirror. There is a Gaia's Will. So if I just remove both Beseeches, my opponent has some mana and can attempt some other stuff. So let's math this out. The Chrome Mox does not make mana, but they can play it to get Metalcraft. So Petal, Opal, Opal is 3 mana. Lotus Petal is 4 mana, so the Beseeches are online. If I leave Gamble, Gamble gets a draw 7. Storm is 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Lethal, though. Yeah, so I do have to take out the Beseeches, or that kills me. And now we see if I live through this. Next turn, I have 3 goblins, so 3, 6 from the Goblin Rabblemaster bonus, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm 1 point short of lethal next turn, I think. Are we brainstorming? Okay, so we're brainstorming with some mana floating from LED. Opal, Legend Rule, Land, Chrome Mox. That's a good card to hit off the brainstorm. So this can now just be Tendrils to kill me. Was there a way to play that where I just take out... Fuck, was there a way to play that where I just take out initial mana sources? Where I just take Petal Petal? So if I take Petal Petal... Was there 3 artifacts for Metalcraft still? I'm not sure, without looking again, if that forces a line down the draw 7 route that still potentially results in me dying. I would have to go and look at that again. I don't think I am making any changes here. This is fine. Turn 1 Vexing Bubble, turn 2 Blood Moon. I don't think this goes back. It does not have a threat yet, which I very, very actively do not like. But this gets me through some initial turn cycles, and that matters a lot. Ooh, I do lose out on the Blood Moon, though. Top deck another one. There's 7 more. Fairy is not fantastic here. I am going to play another Vexing Bauble to have redundancy. I don't think I am going to crack those to draw a card, though. So the biggest fear here is that my opponent can do some sort of Veil of Summer thing to ignore Vexing Bauble, and then just win through what I am currently doing. There's a fetch to clear, but not clearing immediately. Well, I mean, yeah. So we know that this is an actual land destruction spell. At some point, we can grab this Obosh, and that becomes the way that I do win this game. I Obosh is red. Yeah, Obosh is red, so I'm not there yet. And there's the fetch. There's a Surveil land, junking some dead mana. And my opponent gets to cantrip a little bit more. Try to find a way through this. There's a fetch to clear that Brainstorm. And a gamble. Ha 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 ha. Nice. Okay. So now I will put this Obosh in my hand. And it is castable next turn. I think I make this land drop. Here we go. Empty the Warrens. No, that's a little scary. So I will play my threat here, but like it's turn 5 and I have done no damage to my opponent yet. This is not great. I think my opponent can make a moderate number of goblins this turn and probably overpower what I'm doing. There's presumably a large number of artifacts in my opponent's hand if they were gambling for Veil of Summer, which I believe they did. So I think there's going to be a lot of friends here. Yeah. Another Very Macabre. We are probably in emergency mode now, where I have to loop through these. So I'm currently in the situation where I take 10 and then I take 8, which leaves me dead. I need to find one more thing here. I will play a Screaming Nemesis and leave Simian Spirit Guide as potential mana. I guess some small portion of the time I could just outright kill my opponent, because this is 12 damage, right? Fuck, did I mess up by not playing Simian Spirit Guide? No, apparently not. Yeah, what if we draw like a broadside here? Ooh, is my opponent going to attack with everything? Just leave it open? I think that leaves me with some good outs. Alright, so a few goblins being held back. Obosh eats one. Screaming Nemesis eats another. I take 8. Ooh, so this can take out... I can do 2 damage to my opponent's face or take out a goblin token. I will take out a goblin token. Okay. Yeah, no, playing out Screaming Nemesis worked out well there. Elvish Spirit Guide. Okay. So my opponent can deal 9 damage to me on attack. Am I the beatdown? So if my opponent attacks with everything, I can block, maybe put them to 12, and then be swinging in for 12. If my opponent attacks conservatively and does something similar to what they just did, I take 6 going to 4. So much of this is dependent on what I draw the following turn. I'm so close to stable. I'm going to hope that prolonging this game favors me. This is a weird spot where I would like to have the Furies. I don't know, maybe on my turn I attack in, I force the chump, I hit my opponent, and then I try to get them to leave back more things defensively. So do this. Screaming Nemesis triggers. I take out one of these blockers. Next turn I block 2 of these and kill a third. And assuming I draw any other card, I think I'm stable. Nice. So cast Magus of the Moon. My opponent's stuff is now off. I think I just chill. I think prolonging the game at this point is favorable for me. My opponent is on very few cards. Their mana is constrained. Yeah. I can cast a Spirit Guide here. Now with 3 blockers held back, I can probably start some attacks. So Obosh doesn't deal 6 damage. Obosh deals 3 damage, but that 3 damage is doubled, so I can't kill 6 goblins if I attacked. I could potentially kill 3 goblins. I think I am willing to do that. I think my opponent just throws 1 goblin in front here. No goblins. 8. Land drop, which is a mountain. And we're chilling. That's very good. So at this point, each one of these potentially does double damage. I think I am going to continue to attack conservatively. I don't think I need to end this game. Like, with the graveyard covered and artifact mana covered, I think as long as I don't accidentally die to a small tendrils, I'm pretty okay. Alright, opponent goes to 2 with that. So I will drop Vexing Bauble. That makes it very, very hard to get black 4 tendrils, and I'll pass. So now my opponent can't block with any goblins. Sorry, attack with any goblins, because a Screaming Nemesis trigger to the face kills them. Burning Wish. Dark Ritual pre-combat tendrils. A gamble. Discarding a Veil of Summer. And we won. We went positive in that league. It feels very weird to have gone positive in that league, but we did. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. That final game was the one where the Obosh did the most, and it didn't really do a ton there. Throughout the rest of the league, I believe that we passed it once or twice, but I do not believe that it actually ever increased any damage until the final round there. I missed Chromox. I missed it so terribly badly. It really warps the initial mulligan decisions. Like, your Sibian Spirit Guides become so incredibly valuable, and they are not replaceable. And the red rituals get you to 2 mana, not 3 mana, so it's not like you can just do a Rite of Flame style thing to get directly to your 3 mana cards off one land. So I think not having Chrome Mox alone is enough of a reason to not play this deck. The deck needs 2 more Furies. I'm not sure if they should be main deck or sideboard, but it needs them. Clearest thing is just to do this and ignore the existence of Merit Lage. I don't feel like my sideboard was great. Like, I think it is an okay assortment of things for the metagame, but I really found myself lacking versus Storm, and the plan was just like, please just pray and hope that you can race them. The matchup against the opposing red decks felt pretty rough, too. Like, when the 8 main deck Blood Moon effects aren't cutting it because your opponent is just playing basic mountains and ancient tombs of their own, you really feel that disadvantage. I did not actively call it out, but you can feel the absence of some of the 4-drops here, like Pyrogoyf just as another way to very quickly finish a game, or another piece of removal, the One Ring as an alternative source of card advantage. Like, I do definitely miss those cards here. I think the cost of playing Obosh is just too high. For what it is, though, this was a, successful brew. What does this deck look like if it has Obosh? With 2 more Furies in the deck list, this is a reasonable Legacy Obosh deck. With that, I think I'm going to call it a day. If you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU to let them know that I sent you. And I hope you all enjoyed. See ya!